a lot of fun. Looking forward to doing this one with Pat. We did just jump on a couple of seconds ago, and we started to talk about how we would kick things off. It is Scott Fishbowl week. I'm actually repping my Scott Fishbowl top, and
nice.
It has a 0 RB trail on it, so we had to go down and get that. But I paid more in postage and in income or import tax than I did for the actual shirt, but it's here now, so I'm going to get my money's worth out of it. But Scott Fishbowl on this week, and I'm through 3 rounds. Pat mentioned though that he is on the clock. So how are we doing here? What's in the mind, Pat? How many rounds have you done, and what are the options for the selection?
So I just got on the clock right before we started recording here, and I started with Mahomes out of the 105. I came back and got Jamar Chase, and then I got Trey Lance in the 3rd. And then I was looking at maybe one of CeeDee Lamb or DeAndre Swift falling, but they both got taken. So then I was trying to make my decision a few minutes before we started here, and I'm at a little bit of an impasse, mostly because I probably am going to take a running back, and I'm sort of noticing all of the holes and the arguments for all of them. But I've got, I think at this point, decide on one of 3 running backs. So I'm probably leaning Aaron Jones, but Saquon Barkley's there, Leonard Fournette's there, Chubb is there. So there's some pretty solid running back options.
Yeah, and for anyone who's has watched these streams the last couple of weeks, they'll know that it's never too early to draft Brian Robinson. Zach, is it?
No, it's never too early to draft Brian Robinson. Absolute smash league winner. Just the things he's going to do this season are just going to be absurd.
So we're going to keep our 100% exposure to Brian Robinson alive during this draft, most likely. But looking forward to the puppy draft. I started off from the 108, and I have gone with Justin Jefferson. My decision there was between Justin Jefferson and Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp did come back to me, so I started Justin Jefferson, Cooper Kupp, and then I had to go all in. I have taken Devontae Adams in the 3rd round, so we'll see how it plays out. But there's going to be holes in this team when we get to the end.
You're one of the guys I'm trying to lock out in my drafts at quarterback. I seen Carson Wentz go off the board after it took Trey Lance. Was pretty nice.
I was going to ask real quick, just because we literally have someone who went 2 QBs here and someone who went 0. I'll go with Pat first, because I do think that the QB approach is a little bit. Well, I think it's rather optimal, honestly. And Trey Lance is kind of the guy who I really want. Potentially, hopefully no one I'm drafting with on Thursday is listening, as my quarterback too, if he can fall to me. Do you think that the quarterback edge is that massive to get 2 out of the gate and then kind of see what happens after that?
Yeah, and I haven't done the most research into this scoring or anything, so take this with a grain of salt. But it struck me that because of the scoring really kind of making guys like Daniel Jones, Zach Wilson way less interesting. Because there's this completion percentage bonus, and basically efficient quarterback play matters. So the guys who have the elite quarterbacks don't have to worry about as much as the late round quarterbacks being able to keep up with them. It's also not best ball, so you're going to have to plug these guys in every week. So, some of those late round quarterbacks are going to give you negative scoring weeks in this format. Having Mahomes and Lance plugged in. Now, Lance isn't maybe ideal for the format, but I went back and looked at what he scored in his starts last year is pretty solid. And, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts going very high here. So I think if Lance hits his ceiling, if he can kind of emerge as a true rushing quarterback in the mold of those guys with okay efficiency, then I think he'll probably beat his ADP pretty handily and be someone that you're excited to slot into your starting lineup every week.
Yeah, and exactly what Pat said there. I think that the guys that are not the very elite tier quarterbacks are going to run into some issues with, but you get into the interception issue then as well. It's -4 for an interception. So once you get out of those top guys, but at the 108, you mentioned, I think, Pat, you said there you do Patrick Mahomes with your first pick, as a quarterback. There's a big difference in the guys in those first 5 to 6 picks, depending on how the draft plays out, versus even at that Justin Jefferson pick, I was kind of looking there at potentially going Trey Lance. Then he was actually gone before it came back to me in the next round. And you're into that tier of quarterbacks who you're starting to maybe reach and lose the elite advantage that you might get at another position. With the half point pair first down, realistically now I have going by last year, I have 3 of the top 4 wide receivers who are going to get huge volume again this year, and points per first down is really around the amount of targets and receptions you're going to get. So That's why I went that approach. But yeah, I was looking very hard at Justin Fields at that last pick, but there is some drafts where he has gone in the 5th round. So, it's kind of every round is on to itself kind of. But we are getting some comments in here, Pat, so far. We have the first one is Kerrane having connection issues. The other one was hashtag free Kerrane. And then the last one is, my goodness, Pat with this haircut looks identical to Joe Burrow. So there's both compliments and comments coming in there. But
I'm holding nice and still so you can get a look at my haircut. That's all. It's not my internet.
Yeah, he just has he has purposely turned down the internet speed for the stream today. But
God, I wish that was true, because then I could turn it back up.
It's like
I actually think it's my computer. I think I need to buy a new computer.
It's like when people talk about listening to podcasts at 1.5 or 2 times speed. Pat turns his internet down to half speed for streams so people can see his hair. But when we are starting things off, if you are not following Pat, you definitely should be. You can follow him on Twitter at Pat Kerrane. All his work is over at NBC Sports Edge Football, and of course you can find him with Ben Gretch and Pete Overzet over on the Ship Chasing streams as well. Must follow, one of the best, a RotoViz OG. So we're looking forward to jumping into this draft. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say follow Zach as well on Twitter at ZK_FFB. Also part of the NBC Sports Edge crew over there as well. So I think it's probably about time that, Zach, we hit that button and we jump in.
Real quick before we go, I just want to get your guys' thoughts. I have you here. Any thoughts on that group of running backs that I'm deciding on as I'm sitting on the clock? Aaron Jones.
We don't know anything about the running backs.
I know running backs
are I've never heard of those guys. Running backs.
We can get into this puppy stream, then I can Google these guys to see if I have an opinion. But no, for me, dude, I would go Aaron Jones. I mean, I hate the AJ Dillon, vulture potential there, but I also do love the potential of him just reeling in a ton of receptions this season with that wide receiver room. I think that he could be a massively undervalued running back in a lot of these drafts right now. I wrote as much in an article. Hopefully no one hated me too much for saying such a thing. But I like the Aaron Jones value potential. Where is he at right now? Do you know how many backs have gone ahead of him in your draft?
I actually don't know. I don't know that it says, but yeah, Swift is off the board. Kamara's off the board.
Kamara ahead of Jones
seems off the board.
Little bold.
It's definitely a stance.
Yeah, there's a big stance going on right there.
Yeah, he feels like a good value. I'm at the 405, so to get Jones here was pretty good. I was also looking at Sam Hoppins' value over replacement, and that came out with Jones ahead of Mahomes, so it feels like maybe kind of did stuff all out of order. But like I was saying with the quarterback, I'm glad I did. But yeah. I was kind of leaning Jones that way as well. He projects really well from what I've seen for this scoring. So
yeah, I think he'd be a very good pick. Colm has the Green Bay bias, obviously. So
yeah. I probably, like, based on current ADP, that's the sensible pick to do. Though I haven't drafted Aaron Jones really, I don't think at all this year. I'd probably be more likely to go with Saquon, but based on ADP, that's probably the pick to make. But interesting to see how we get on through this draft today as it's setting to fill up. Zach, you can let us know when it does show which position we are going to be on the draft board. But Pat, how are you feeling and where do you want to be and how do you want to approach this? Are we going to take it 0 RB? I know you just want to get Ronald Jones on the roster. Zach wants to get Brian Robinson on the roster. So we have our 2 starting running backs decided on already. We can star them and put them
go ahead and do this just to get ahead of it.
And we are.
Oh, that's dangerous, man.
Yeah, we live dangerously out here. We're at the 107, by the way.
We're at the 107. Interesting as well, the amount of thought and consideration we put into these Scott Fishbowl picks. I love Scott. I love the tournament. I've played in it now for many years. But we put so much, like, we're playing in some of these high stakes leagues then over at the FFPC where we're like just firing in picks. And then we're playing in a free contest where we're going through them. All the details, but
no one searches for my teams on Best Ball. You know what I mean? There's sort of a, you can't tweet out my team.
There's definitely that advantage to not having people search your underdog teams, but everyone can literally go find your Scott Fishbowl team if they want to.
Yeah.
How are we going to set it up? We are getting calls here for Rojo in the first and Robinson in the second, but how are we going to approach it here, Pat? We like to let the guests lead the way, but I'm hoping that you're not going to want running back.
There's that one small caveat.
You drafted Aaron Jones over in the Scott Fishbowl. That's your fill for the first 10 rounds here.
All right. You're right. That's my running back for the day. Yeah, I mean, I always pray that Chase will fall somehow. And occasionally he does. He's done it once to the 7, and he will fall to the 6. I don't know, one out of every 6 or 7 times. But here he goes. So, yeah, I'm good with Diggs. If you guys want to go Diggs, I kind of go Eckler or Diggs here. Over on DK, I'll go Kelsey sometimes in the spot because his ADP is higher, but Diggs is good.
How do you feel, Zach? I was going to mention Jefferson as well, but he's gone, obviously. But we're one pick away here. That was us and Eckler. So I think it sets up pretty much for us to go with Diggs here. Unless we go, I haven't been taking Kelsey much at Underdog in the first round, but that would be the other option. But I think Diggs is the way to play it.
Diggs is always a slam dunk for me in these drafts. Whether that's going to work out well for me or not, I'm not sure. But I love getting Diggs here. So let's go ahead and do that one. He's in.
This is one of the first drafts I think, Zach, that we have done together where we've been kind of between the 1 and the 5 the 5 and the 7 pick. A lot of ours have been, those first 3 picks or those last 3 picks. So we should have a little bit of flexibility here. You'll know this, Pat, as well as anybody. When we're doing these streams or doing live drafts and you're at the turns, it can be a pretty stressful event.
I know, yeah.
It's been traumatizing.
So we have Derrick Henry off the board now. We have Cook. Then we do have Kelsey at the 110. So again, there's going to be a lot of options here for us in the second round. You mentioned the Aaron Jones pick. I mentioned Saquon Barkley, whose ADP is rising. But are there any of the guys, the wide receivers in particular, in the second round that are of high interest to you here, Pat? Or is there a running back that you want to go for? Let's say Swift. Is there potentially?
I like Swift, yeah, but he's usually got Barkley.
Yeah, Barkley. His ADP really rose in this draft.
Yeah, I'm still getting Barkley sometimes in the late second, and I'm taking him more in the best ball drafts, I think, because I do think his ADP will rise pretty considerably, maybe to this range. But yeah, that's also I kind of just want to get a good price on Barkley as opposed to loving him more than those running backs in that range, because I feel like I probably don't have enough Aaron Jones. But Deebo Samuel, who just went, is really the guy I'm hammering. I have a ton of Debo.
That was the guy
in that kind of mid-second range.
That was the guy I was hoping that would slide. Now, when we look at the options that are going to be available here, T. Higgins is somebody I'm drafting a lot of. AJ Brown, somebody I'm drafting a lot of. But in this range as well, DeAndre Swift is, for me, I know you.
I would go Swift here.
Yeah. He really stands out for me if we go for the running back. So I think the hope would be that one of, and I don't think it will happen, but one of Hill, Higgins, or Brown would get back to us. But I don't expect that to happen. But I think we go Swift here.
Man, what this is very bad for the brand.
There is
guys,
though.
Between RotoViz and Pat's, I've never drafted a running back bio. This is terrible, but I like the pick overall.
The funny thing is, I love hero running back. That's my favorite. Construction. So this actually feels great.
Yeah, it is. He actually turned off his camera when he admitted that. That's amazing. That happened.
I didn't actually. This is just continuing.
Yeah, no, we obviously talk a lot of zero running back, but when we're looking at the structure that gives both the upside and a little bit of that security, if you're going for that, you coined the phrase legendary running back, Pat, to get somebody like that. And I think DeAndre Swift fits that mold. When we look through the first, second, and third rounds, there's only kind of probably 3 to 4 running backs that I'm actually going to be trying to actually draft. And when we've been drafting, like I mentioned, Zach in our other drafts early in the first round, late in the second round, Swift hasn't been there a huge amount off the time. So yeah, I think it's nice to get a run at him there. After our pick, we get Joe Mixon, we get Leonard Fournette, AJ Brown, Nick Chubb, T. Higgins. Pat is still hiding after admitting the fact that he enjoys drafting running backs. But how are you feeling, Zach, through those first two picks with Diggs and Swift? I think that gives you a really balanced start here, and we can kind of approach it however we want. If we want to go for a potential elite tight end, whoever's there in the third or fourth rounds, and we can also continue to load up with wide receivers. Looking at the running backs that go in this range, Pat, if anyone's listened to OT over the last month or so with myself and Sean, Breece Hall is the guy that Sean is kind of taking the stand on for the running backs in this range. Is there any other running backs for you that fall into that kind of third through fifth round range as you enjoy your new setup here? Giving us a full house tour.
This is the worst setup ever, but I think this is what we're going with. My camera just crapped out on top of everything else.
Oh.
The internet's less laggy though, so that's positive.
That's good. Look, you can see me move. It's nice. I guess maybe that's what it was going on. The camera's on its last legs. So, man, I actually hate this range like so much. DJ Moore would be the only guy who I'd like feel happy with. The other guy would be maybe Kamara, who I do think Drew Davenport had a thread on that made me feel like
I seen that one
this
as well.
might be the discount that we were waiting for. So I'd go DJ Moore or Kamara, who both should be moving up.
Colm, you decide.
Oh, I'm going to go for DJ Moore or Jalen Waddle, so I'll go for Moore.
Okay. I'm good with
I did see that. I did see that thread as well, Pat, and it does feel like, based on the current news, that it may be 2022 or 2023, when that actually would come into effect. So you might be getting a discount here on Kamara. And realistically, if he's not suspended for the season, I think he's going in the mid-second round, kind of where we took Swift. Would you agree with that? If it came out that there's no action going to be taken, he's going to jump around in value at this point?
Yeah, I think it struck me when he was gone in that late second period that no one was talking about the suspension risk. And so I think he'd probably end up back there. Like, I wasn't taking him there at all because it didn't feel like, based on the arguments I was hearing, that was getting priced in at all. Then it did get priced in probably by about, a round. So at that point, I'm like, okay, well, if the risk isn't all that high, then now that it's priced in, I'll take him.
Yeah, no, that feels spot on. So it could start to creep up here. And I think it's going to vary draft to draft depending on people's risk tolerance as well. DJ Moore, who we did take in the third round there, that is obviously a jump in his ADP over the last week or so as Baker Mayfield did move from the Browns to the Panthers. And Zach, that kind of worked out quite well for us. There's a number of drafts where we were taking Baker Mayfield, and I know we were thinking that he was going to end up with the Seattle Seahawks, but it's worked out for us so far. Anyway, hopefully his play on the field will also work out. And hopefully this is the year that any sort of quarterback play can help out DJ Moore, because one of the most talented wide receivers in the entire league, but has had to deal with a lot of bad quarterback play. We're into the mid-fourth round now. We're 2 picks away. James Conner goes off the board. Some of our options here to be Deontay Johnson, Gabriel Davis, or potentially Darren Waller could fit in there, or George Kittle as the elite tight end. Any of those guys a tight end of interest, or is there a standout target for you here, Pat?
I think Waller and Kittle are both pretty great in this range. Kittle sometimes comes all the way back, so Waller would probably be the guy.
Okay, let's go Waller. That'll rule out myself and Zach having our weekly argument between Dalton Schultz and TJ Hawkinson as to who
that
to be the tight end.
That puts that to bed right away. Dalton Schultz ADP, I think, has kind of been shooting up a little bit though recently.
Yeah, it is climbing up quite a bit. But when we look at those two guys, I haven't drafted a lot of them based on the fact that we have been going for those next 2 tight end options. Have you? Is it kind of you're happy to take either of those guys, Pat, or is there a strong preference for Waller over Kittle?
No, and I have more Kittle than Waller because the presence of Kittle makes me willing to push it a little bit with Waller, and then I also have an ungodly amount of Trey Lance, so that's going to lead you to it's I have an ungodly amount, and I'm like looking to get more. So if I'm sitting there with Kittle, and it's easy to justify more Lance. But yeah, I think Waller and Kittle are both like kind of wildly mispriced relative to their talent level, basically. I mean, I understand the target-based competition arguments with Waller and the kind of the issues with the overall San Francisco offense with regards to Kittle. But, Kittle, I think is the best tight end of the league at this point. So to get him in the 5th round,
for sure.
Yeah. And that's kind of crazy. The best player at his position available in the 5th round when, we know that having an elite at that position really matters. Yes, some things could break wrong against him in terms of just not throwing much at all. And it could be a bad pick, but I don't know. Kittle's going to be awesome this year again. I feel confident about that. And that's so much of the battle. So I'm taking a lot. And I do feel like a lot of that's really priced in, especially in the 5th round. I think he would be if Kittle was mid-3rd, then we'd have some decisions to make, but we're getting 2 rounds lower from that.
Yeah, I think him and Waller are, closer to Mark Andrews than we're seeing here by ADP in terms of, I know Andrews went a little bit earlier in this draft, but yeah, big differences. We're nearly on the clock, so we can see that Zach is getting into the full-fledged ready mode here. But
I put Ezekiel Elliott in the queue as, he'd be a 15 pick value, so I threw him in there just for the hell of it. But we got some other decent receivers here. Assuming we're not going quarterback or tight end at this spot, this is kind of who else is on the board here.
Well,
yeah, I feel bad about the Waller pick is a little unfortunate now because wide receiver dried up so much. I think the pick is Zeke, guys.
I think it is too.
It's a crazy value, and it allows us to be a little bit more flexible at running back. We can push our running back 3 really late.
Yeah. No, I think Zeke is really solid here, and I've gotten him crazy late in a couple of drafts where he's fallen like this, and it seems kind of inexplicable to me at this point, just because I think his ADP is already pretty low given the volume that he still might see. I think the production is more in question with Zeke at this point than it is the volume, at least early on. So if he ends up being good, a 4th round value is going to still look like a smash. A 5th round value, I think, is all the better, obviously. So I like these Zeke dips whenever it happens.
I don't mind who does it. It won't be me because I didn't want that pick. But here, can we? Who's going to give us the value hound? Who's doing it?
There's only one person who wanted to do that.
Has to be Pat.
Is there one who came up with it? Did someone come up with that bit?
I don't know, but I associate it now with Pete. Pete,
for the record, Pete came up with it. I'm doing a bit because I enjoy tweeting about value hounding.
Here's the feelings on this is my feelings on this pick. We'll see how it comes back during the season, but that's my analysis. Here's another one. We're drafting Zeke. Where's the unsub button? What's happening here, guys? Where's the brand? What's happening here?
When I do stuff like this, I blame it on hanging out with Leone. He gets in your head with these usable weeks types of stuff. It's hey, we get some points from Zeke. He helps us get to the week 15 playoffs. Maybe we get one spike week out of him, and then some other running back that we draft later will win us the whole thing. But Zeke in the 5th is pretty fun. In half point PPR league and best ball, we can draft him.
Yeah. I've got a couple wide receivers queued up here. I know that Colm and myself aren't particularly high on Amari Cooper. I'm guessing Kerrane's probably not either, but I put him in there just in case. Other guys I love here I love Russell Gage. I really like Devonta Smith as well. What would kind of fit best with the Stephon Diggs and DJ Moore build here as we're now on the clock?
I'm good with good.
No, you go first, Pat.
I like Smith, and I haven't been drafting a ton of Gage since his price would rocketed up, but I'd be open to that too.
Colm?
Yeah, no, I was going to say Smith or Hurts, so Smith would be my pick there.
Okay, let's do Smith. I think quarterback is still so on the table for us at this point in time. A couple other guys still coming up, so I think we can finagle that a little bit down the stretch here.
Zach's just devastated because Dalton Schultz would have been a clear option there if they hadn't have taken Darren Waller.
Yeah, no, I'm okay. I got Dalton Schultz already, so we're okay. It would have been a nice little Dallas stack, though. We can't deny that.
Can we? Which would we rather, Ingram in the 15th or Zeke in the 5th?
Zeke in the 5th. I mean, Ingram in the 15th. I was taking Ingram in the 20th at times.
Yeah, I will never draft Mark Ingram. I'm sorry. I just can't bring myself to do it at this stage in his career.
But the Elliott pick, I think, is fine there, but it's just he should be going higher than he is going there. But I'll hold my hands up. I think that's the first, or maybe did we draft? I think we might have drafted Zeke with Reeves when he was on as well. So maybe I'll just get my 2 shares and I'll check out after this. Interestingly enough, on last week's stream with Derek Brown, I was forced into taking Tony Pollard. This week, I'm forced into taking Ezekiel Elliott. So something's going on here. But how are we feeling through those 6 rounds so far? Our wide receivers are Stephon Diggs, DJ Moore, Devontae Smith. We have our running backs and DeAndre Swift and Ezekiel Elliott. And then we have Darren Waller at tight end. So a very, very balanced team so far through those opening 6 rounds. You mentioned about pushing the wide receiver or the running back tree quite a bit now, Pat. How are we feeling over these next 3 or 4 rounds? How are we feeling about those wide receivers in particular as we move forward here?
I'm more concerned about quarterback, where we're kind of coming down to the last where we could just take 2. We don't have much. We don't really have any stacks. We don't have any stacks, and we don't have any. Therefore, we don't have any correlation of any kind. So that's where my head's at now. It's like let's try to figure out if we can work some guys in that'll help us build some stacks.
Yeah. What about your boy if he gets back to us here, Pat, Mr. Trey?
Well, that wouldn't help us with any kind of correlation. I guess we have a bring back. Okay.
I was thinking of the option
back there, but
yeah, there's the potential of the stack with Ayuk potentially would have been an option. They, I believe, face off against the Raiders.
Help me out here, guys. What are we thinking? We can't take Derek Carr here. I'm taking him out of the queue just to make sure it doesn't happen by accident, but we're about to be on the clock here.
I would say Dak is actually a pretty solid option. Quarterback's flying off the board. I think he's the highest quarterback now.
Yes.
By ADP, yeah.
And now we're asking him to get back to us after ADP if we pass.
How do we feel about punting quarterback here?
I almost never punt.
I almost never as well, but I'm just looking at our wide receivers and I'm thinking that Ayuk could be a good piece to add in there. But if you want to go Dak, we'll go Dak. You're the guest here.
I like going Dak, and then there's a way to play this in the 8th.
Yeah. There's a way to play this in the 8th. We're not going to tell anybody, and we're going to remove the available draft board.
And we're also now at least now we have a stack. We have Dak to Zeke. There's going to be those.
Dak to Zeke is actually, I think, an okay stack because Zeke is just completely dependent on the quality of Dallas's offense.
Yeah,
because he's bad. So we can, if the Cowboys are rolling, Zeke's going to be rolling. He's going to be racking up touchdowns, so we'll be all right. It's more of a season long get us there stack than a week 17 stack.
So I was asking about how we feel about the roster. You mentioned your quarterback was the main thought process. We've got 1 quarterback. We obviously like to get 2 quarterbacks in the quarterback window. That gives us a couple of rounds, but the options may get quite flat as quarterback has gone off the board quite heavy over the last 3 rounds or so. I mentioned Ayuk. He goes off the board. At this point, we have those 3 wide receivers. I do think that we're going to start to get into a concerning spot with wide receiver firepower here. I know there's options we do like from kind of the 10th round onwards, but compared to those real high upside options, I think it gets less. There is probably a name in Pat's mind here as we trail back into this round. But how are you feeling, Zach? I get this feeling when we have 2 running backs at this point. I get the feeling that people get when they see our rosters with no running backs in it when we have 3 wide receivers. I'm panicking now that we have too many running backs at this point.
The one thing that's so crazy right now is, and he just went, but Elijah Mitchell is basically almost a 2-round value at whoever got him. He fell about 20 spots below his ADP. That's really good. The same could be said of AJ Dillon, as he's got an ADP of 67.4. We're about to be on pick 87. That's pretty ridiculous by all counts of the word. So it sucks that our wide receivers we feel are a little bit thin right now, but the value at running back has naturally crept up. But there's definitely a couple players here. I am remiss to show the queue before we are officially on the clock here. Are we in agreement that we're looking wide receiver here? Like,
we're hammering wide receiver. I think everything Colm said is right. Like we can't ignore wide receiver for any longer. I'm totally comfortable with this though. Like I think we've got an elite tight end. We've got one quarterback that allows us to get a second in the window, or I actually am fine going 3 quarterbacks because the quarterbacks very late are like starting quarterbacks. You know, they're guys who like aren't going to lose their job, like even in the 15th, 16th round. So I'm okay tacking on 2 of those guys if we prefer. But to me, this is Burks all day. We've got the Dallas Titans Week 17 correlation going for us. The Treylon Burks discount is here. Let's gobble it up.
Yeah, I like that. I had more at the top of the queue because I've heard that Pat likes Sky more. But
reports.
But I thought that the correlation with the Dallas Titans game might also be on the table there. So I like the Burks play there as well.
Yeah, they're both options that I would happy to take. So it makes sense to go with the correlation. We'll start to see how things play out now through these next couple of rounds. Bollock did say that this is basically a ship chasing draft, but like we do tend to like the same profiles of players and draft the same kind of guys. So
I mean, both Pete and I started at RotoViz, so.
and then Ben obviously does the shows with Sean.
Ben obviously started at RotoViz as well. Yeah.
So there's
you
a lot
can
of
take the boy out of RotoViz. You can't take the RotoViz out of the boy, is what they say on
when we're talking about correlations. Yeah, there's a lot of correlations between the players that we're going to draft in these. But yeah. So I can feel some air coming into my lungs. There's oxygen going into my blood as we get a wide receiver here in the 9th or the 8th round. I do think, there's lots of ways.
I was about to black out.
Yeah. I was getting
a wide receiver here, guys.
I was getting dizzy. But so nice and balanced. There is a couple of flat areas coming up here. It'll be interesting to see though who comes back. I had mentioned a few times there about we don't want running backs, but there's still a couple here that I would be tempted to dive into with that third running back. At the moment, it feels like we could be into a 4 running back build potentially. How are you feeling about the structure overall? Are we going to go 5, or depending on how we go here in the next 3 rounds, are we going to look to go potentially 4?
This feels 5 to me, because we already talked about we're probably pushing our second. Zeke is not a superhero build to me guy. He is a dead zone back, but he's like an okay. He's got some ceiling even for a dead zone back. So I think 5. We're probably gonna have pretty cheap running back costs from now on. So getting 3 makes sense.
I'm interested for the people watching in. Let us know in the chat box who your favorite targets would be here and what we might do to see what we can do over the next couple of rounds. Garrett Wilson, somebody who I've drafted quite a bit of. Drafting a lot of rookies, that's not a surprise, but that kind of Treylon Burks, Sky Moore, Garrett Wilson, lots of options there. I do think we are 2 picks away. We're now 1 pick away. Kareem Hunt goes off the board. Zach, do you want to fire up here as Rogers went off the board and we have
I have a single man in our queue, and it would just kind of continue the Dallas Tennessee stack correlation here, but we probably need something else.
This is kind of a crazy value on Goddard. Is maybe a little bit of a weird.
The Goddard problem would be. Oh, actually, the bye weeks are not the same. Yeah, we should probably take Goddard.
I'm down with that. That's fun.
2 tight ends, and that's okay.
I'm glad. I don't know what just happened there. I could have sworn that on my other screen that I'm looking at that it said that they had the same bye week. I don't know what happened there, but no, that's really solid. So that's
just what we normally do, Zach. We just normally draft 2 tight ends with the same bye week.
That's kind of become our brand, is accidentally drafting 2 tight ends on the same bye week and then deciding whether or not we just want to punt the bye on the tight end the 1 week or not. It's not our finest hour.
The running back. If we hadn't taken Zeke, the running back, Zach knows that Singletary is my kind of number 1 target for your RB rosters. He would have been also a good option there. Hunt, there's a lot of nice guys in this range. Hunt's there as well, and I know we'll probably see over the next portion of time here. Melvin Gordon, I think, is interesting as well. But we do get Goddard, which I think is a strong value. That means that we are set at the 2 tight ends, going to give us a little bit more flexibility moving forward. Ideally now, if we, depending on how things play out here, if we did get into a situation where we could have 2 quarterbacks as the build, I think that could give us a huge amount of flexibility going forward. It feels like the next 2 rounds are probably our last chance to do that, or else we're probably have to go for a 3 quarterback build. There's one quarterback that I'm not very excited to draft this year, but might fit into this over the next round or so. Anyone standing out for you, Pat, that you would want to be targeting here in the 10th round?
Let me see the queue.
Yeah.
Zach's afraid to show it. Still Robert
I'm afraid.
Woods.
I'm afraid to show. I still have Robert Woods in there.
Are you afraid to show that we're going to get sniped, or that you have Robert Woods on the queue?
It's a little bit of both.
Fields goes. I assume that's who you're talking about.
Yeah.
I don't love these quarterbacks at all. These guys are all like round 15 values that we would take in round 10. So
the way I'm kind of thinking quarterback right now is we have Burks. We can just get Tannehill later if we want to, and if we still want a third quarterback, we could get like Baker or Wentz. But I'm kind of in on the Tannehill thing late and just smashing some wide receivers here.
Yeah, I like it.
No, yeah, it was Fields or no one there for me. Just scroll up to the top again to see some of the options. I know you have Watson.
I'm at the top. That's a bad part.
No, but scroll up to the top though. No, I would say.
Is this how bad the players are that are left?
Yeah, Kenny Galladay's the best option.
For fun here, we could take Ronald Jones. Could be the pick. Not really.
We
excited
could go Gallup as well for the correlation. Give us a stacking partner.
Do you want to do that, Colm? Go Gallup here?
Not really, but we'll let Pat do it.
Okay, we're gonna do it.
It's wide receiver 5, which isn't ideal for the injury. You'd rather have it be 6 or something, but
I'm hoping Gallup will be back for the week 17 game anyway.
Yeah. I think earlier on you were in on Tolbert. Is that correct, Pat? Do you like Tolbert?
I like Tolbert all right. Yeah, he's like a little bit more expensive than I would prefer. But I mean, I prefer he was just basically free and I could hammer him and tack him onto every draft. But you have to pay a little bit. You have to think about making sure you get him. And so I don't always get him. But I like him.
I think the problem, too, that I have with Tolbert is, like you said, his price where it is right now and the fact that they even have James Washington, who's actually the free wide receiver at this point in time. Like, I would think that Tolbert would probably hopefully see a little bit more playing time than James Washington. But James Washington hasn't exactly been terrible when given opportunities. So I wrestle with that one a little bit. But I like both of them.
Yeah, I like the options, trying to stack the quarterbacks with the not elite option in the roster. So like in this case, we do have Gallup. We have Zeke, who might be a little bit different, but there is the option then to maybe get some of the cheaper Dallas options later on. And then, targeting a lot of the kind of gross stacks. We were looking at the quarterback options there, drafting probably too much Jared Goff at this point in time, but some of the options to access some of the cheaper stacks are of interest. When we're looking here though, we'll see who does manage to come back to us. I do agree that the Gallup pick there made sense. It was just a very, very flat portion here when we get into it. I'm not really trying to draft the likes of Galladay. Jameson Williams, who goes off the board, would potentially be interesting, but it is quite a flat zone there through those 2 rounds outside of the rookie options in general. The other player that would have interested me there would have been Melvin Gordon, but we'll see here. Maybe Rojo makes it back. If he gets back, Pat, are we able to take him, or are we bypassing him again?
I tell you what, there's a running back I'm drafting over Rojo right now in this range. And I think it makes more sense given that what we've already done.
I think we could probably fire off.
Oh, there he goes. It was Rachaad White.
That was going to be my guess.
White.
I love Rachaad White.
Love him. And plus we already have DJ Moore. Gives us a little mini after he takes over the Tampa Bay backfield at the end of the year.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We love running backs who are backups to Leonard Fournette, who Tom Brady hates. That's our thing.
That is what we do. He doesn't hate Rachaad White yet, for the record.
We could take Ronald Jones here.
I'd be okay with Jones. I'd be okay with Cook. Pretty nice value. I'd also be okay with Landry, which gives us some Philly correlation.
I almost want to go Landry just because we also need receivers.
We kind of need receivers, so I think Landry makes the most sense.
Yeah, in theory, we might only have 4 wide receivers at this point to start. So Landry is our wide receiver 5, while Gallup probably is a little bit safer, I think.
Agreed. Right. Yeah, and Burks could start slow. Like we could really need Landry in this build.
Yeah.
It's amazing to see Landry's rise over the last kind of month or so. I know there's kind of a running joke of Ben, talking Landry up a lot, but like at one point I was editing the Stadium Bananas podcast and they talked about the New Orleans Saints and they talked about Jarvis Landry, and it was like his name just surprised me almost at that point, and he's just continued to rise up. And in the 11th round, I think he's somebody who is seen as a safe pick, but also is somebody who could see a huge amount of work here if we start to hear more reports about Michael Thomas. Not like he's been out so long and his recovery has been so secretive that I still have a huge amount of concern that he's ever going to be back anywhere near 100%. And 100% of what he was a record-setting NFL wide receiver. And we've seen with the likes of Odell Beckham how tough that is, obviously, to maintain. So it feels like Michael Thomas is through his window of success there. Ronald Jones does go a couple of picks later. James Cook, who you mentioned, would have been a solid pick as well. And just based on having those two running backs in those first kind of 5-6 rounds, them last two picks of Gallup and Landry made a lot of sense. So we are a few picks away again as Zach switches over the screen. Some really interesting running back options here at this point. Anyone else that's not in the list there at the moment, Pat, interest you?
No, I think you guys have got it. I'm not taking a ton of Pierce. I like the other guys.
I've had to give up on Pierce. I like the idea of it early on, but I've kind of quit that one.
Scroll up there. Scroll up to the top of the queue, please.
The top of the queue. All right, I'm there. Now what?
I'm only joking. Scroll down a bit, will you?
I like Michael Carter for a couple reasons. I think that the Jets have a super soft playoff schedule for the tournament purposes. We know he's a PPR back. I think there's also correlation with him in Detroit if we wanted that. And then obviously Darrell Henderson, Isaiah Spiller, they're RotoViz mascots at this point. So what are you guys thinking here?
I like it.
Carter?
Yeah.
Yeah, go for it. I think the best pick is Spiller, but I think based on the correlations, the Carter's makes sense.
Yeah, Carter was very good too when he had the chance to play, like from a production standpoint. Like if anything were to happen where Brees Hall goes down and we're heading into the playoff portion of this tournament, I think it's going to be a wheels up for that week 15 to 17 stretch for Carter if he happens to be in the starting role there. So I like Michael Carter late.
I agree with the talent thing. I think he's the only guy I actually feel good that we know is talented. And in some ways, I like the situation the least because like it's hardest to imagine you just needing the Jets running back this year,
Yeah.
Where it's like it's so much easier to imagine. Yeah, it's like if Henderson happens to be the Rams running back or if Spiller happens to be the Chargers running back, so easy to imagine how they're just a must start. But yeah, Carter could maybe force the issue a little bit because he's talented.
That makes sense. The question I was going to ask you was if, you weren't looking for correlations, who would you take? But the other thing, like I'm very high on Brees Hall coming in, but, if things don't work out earlier in the season or injuries happen, that's, a lot of what we're looking at here. As much as we don't want injuries in the 12th round, when we see the gaps in ADP for some of these players, that's what makes Isaiah Spiller so intriguing to me as well, as the fact that, his co-running back at this point is going in the first half of the first round. So any running backs with big gaps in ADP like that, I'm generally going to target. This is usually the range where some of those, second tight ends come into play, or even third tight ends, depending on the build. You have the likes of Albert Okwuegbunam. The other one that tends to be going around this range is Gerald Everett. He'll probably go off the board here in the next couple of picks. But the one I wanted to catch you on, Pat, when you are here is Greg Dulcich, is somebody you've talked a bit about when you were on the draft stream. You talked with us on the show, and then Albert O's ADP has dropped quite a bit down to the 12th round. I'm still drafting him, but how are you feeling that there is playing out with your inside track here on Greg Dulcich? And if we have to wait to after this pick, we can, but interested in your thoughts because you're the Greg Dulcich insider.
Yeah, I'm definitely the Greg Dulcich enthusiast. I don't know if I have any inside information. Let's do this pick here, and then I'll discuss Albert O versus Greggy Dulcich.
We took a running back there a second ago. The running back that I like in this range, if you're just thinking running back, is Kenneth Gainwell. The other player that's here that we touched on earlier from the Dallas crew to pair up with Prescott is Tolbert. And
I like Tolbert.
I will say Marvin Jones correlates Dallas and Detroit for what it's worth, but we can go Tolbert still.
I like getting the correlation with the primary stack more for the, outside of that 1 week.
Yeah,
like you get the correlation the whole season and in all the playoff weeks. So
yeah, so Tolbert it is.
Yeah, I like Tolbert here a lot.
Right.
You're the first person I hear talking about the correlation between the wide receiver and the quarterback throughout the first 15 weeks of the season. I think that's an edge that we could all add on as well. But
yeah, I mean, it helps you get there, and then week 15, you gotta win your league in week 15. You gotta win your league in week 16. I think.
Yeah. No, but I think we've heard so much about week 17. Obviously the main thing is to get there. Sean made a point on one of our recent drafts that I think it's $1 million you get for being the highest scoring team throughout the regular season, but everyone's just decided to forget about that portion of it as well. But when we look at the Dulcich situation, what are we thinking there? Is Albert O's ADP drops, and we haven't really seen Dulcich just move that much.
No, Dulcich is still free. I like getting a lot of Broncos. I like getting. I like getting Chiefs, and then the Broncos play the Chiefs in week 17, so that leads you to Broncos. So I'm going to be probably the most overweight the Broncos Chiefs stacks of any stacks in this tournament. And so it would be really silly, I think, to take a stand against Albert O, even though I do like Greg Dulcich. So I'm overweight Albert O, but I'm also overweight Greg Dulcich. I'm probably going to be massively overweight Greg Dulcich considering he doesn't always get drafted. So like being even with the field is a big stance, or like being what tradition would be even with the field at 8.3%. So I think Albert O, given what he's shown in terms of his receiving efficiency, he's got a ton of size. He's a classic inline tight end. He has a lot of upside.
We might talk more about it in a second. We are one pick away. So looking at the options in the queue, Zach has Kenneth Gainwell and George Pickens as we are on the clock. Anyone else standing out here for you? We'd probably maybe in the next round getting into quarterback territory, but I think we could still pass here.
I like Gainwell.
Yeah. I like Gainwell 2 rounds ago, so I'm happy to take him.
Right. I put him in there because I was like, well, it's going to be close. We might get him coming back here. And this is, I mean, I know that we have 2 really good running backs up top, so that's good. But I do like the fact that we know we're going to go fairly light at the running back position, and we don't have any overlapping bye weeks there either, which I just think is kind of an added bonus to the build. So I think Gainwell fits that nicely as well.
Yeah,
yep.
I think it's going to be very interesting, but I know people are here for the Broncos tight ends conversation, so I think it's going to be interesting to see how they're deployed. Last year, we did see a lot of Alberto and Noah Fant at separate times, but sometimes together. I think that might be something we see. I'm always inquisitive to rookie tight ends. I usually kind of try and avoid them, but the reports have been glowing, and your glowing reports even at draft time really opened my eyes towards Dulcich as well. So drafting both of them, but I'm surprised just at how much Alberto is starting to drop in ADPs really into this range now, with the likes of Tonyan, Henry, Fairmouth, where he was previously, kind of in a little bit of a tier above that. David Njoku goes off the board. I did mention the possibility of looking into quarterbacks in this range. Is there any quarterbacks down here that you would be prioritizing, Pat? As another one of our guys, KJ Hamler, goes off the board.
I think there's a bunch of guys that are, fine here. I think Tannehill, I like that suggestion earlier from Zach. We have Zach Wilson with Michael Carter, which isn't like the stackiest stack ever, but, maybe break ties that way. We got Baker with DJ Moore potential. So, I think we could take one here if we want. What's the ADP looking like?
We're going to need one with one of these next 2 picks. The question's going to be, if both of these guys make it back, do we want to – are we fine with one of them maybe being lost between now and the next pick back, or do we want to make sure we definitely get one of someone like Tannehill or Mayfield, or even Zach Wilson? He's on the clock as well. This week's hero, Zach Wilson.
So ADP bumped up. 2-round ADP bump.
But yes, we're on the clock.
I think it makes sense here to go the way of stacking either Mayfield or Tannehill. Don't have a strong preference over either of the options. Probably the Mayfield might have the more upside than Tannehill based on the receiving.
We're more likely to get Tannehill coming back, or Mayfield coming back, though. I think
we're going to be.
I'm with you, but I think Tannehill.
Tannehill.
Okay.
Let's take Tannehill just so we have him here. Because we didn't really have another player queued up there ready to go. I know you guys probably did want Brian Robinson, but we at least get Tannehill out of the way. It's pretty good.
I see he's in the queue.
Yeah. I'm trying to get more Brian Robinson in the queue. I'm going to see if there's more of him left anywhere on the board there.
Second edition.
Yeah.
I think, and based now that we have Tannehill and Dak, do you think we still need to push for a 3 quarterback option, or are you willing to risk a 2 quarterback build here?
I normally at this point am going 3 with this build. I used to do 2, but I do feel like the opportunity cost is pretty low.
Yeah. Versus what's going to be available.
Yeah, a start. Like we're going to end up getting a quarterback. Like maybe if we're getting Baker Mayfield, this isn't necessarily true, but most of the time you're getting a guy who's like going to start the whole season. The quarterbacks are going a little bit higher than they sometimes do. Yeah. But yeah, 15th, 16th, 17th round, you're getting guys who are locked into starting roles. It does feel like, the opportunity cost at that price is pretty low.
Do we want to double tap quarterback here? I'm just trying to ready up the queue here a little bit. I mean,
the only reason you're asking that, you're just trying to take your mind off the fact that Brian Robinson's after getting drafted.
Yeah, well,
Will Fuller going is actually the heartbreaker.
Yeah, I thought that.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
Yeah, but I've got 2 quarterbacks in the queue. I don't know if there's any other players we'd want to possibly entertain. I know Isaiah McKenzie is popular in some crowds.
Wendell goes off the board.
We can roll the clip.
What are we looking
Visca.
at? What's the queue look like?
Here we go.
The wide receivers got taken. How many do we have?
We have 7 receivers at the moment.
Okay, that's not dire.
No, we're starting. Yeah. We it rounded out quite well based on how we were going in the early stages.
I kind of do like Baker for that reason. Like I feel like we're kind of set enough at receiver. We don't need to go and grab one of these guys right now. I don't think there's a running back here who I love in particular, unless we wanted to go and like shoot a shot on James Robinson, who's a little bit of a value at this point.
Yeah, I don't see anybody really. I think I'm Zach Wilson over Baker, even with the DJ Moore versus Michael Carter. Correlation's better with Baker, but
yeah,
Zach Wilson has to get hurt not to start all 17.
Yeah, and the kind of the thesis of the Michael Carter play is soft playoff schedule. So if this team makes it, Zach Wilson benefits from that as well, kind of like Carter does in theory. So I'm good with Zach Wilson. Colm, you have 3 seconds to talk us out of it.
No, I'm not going to talk you out of it. Okay.
I thought I was hoping you'd try, and then I could go. You blew it.
Yeah, too late.
I think that was potentially his plan. That's why I decided I wasn't going to. But how can we go against Zach Wilson this week?
You wouldn't give me the satisfaction.
We can't go against Zach Wilson this week after all the. I was about to say all the measurables. That's probably a bad word to use.
Oh no.
But with everything that's happened over the last week or so, but look, I think when we're looking at players there, I touched on, we have drafted quite a bit of Baker Mayfield, myself and Sean, in a couple of the SuperFlex tournaments that both the Underdog and FFPC punted on quarterback and took the likes of Mayfield. This past week, we were drafting Geno Smith in the last round over the FFPC. So probably just differentiating my shares, but I have taken quite a bit of Zach Wilson. I mentioned earlier about liking Garrett Wilson, stacking those guys, or Elijah Moore as well. So like Wilson there. And when you're in this range looking at players, I think we know what Baker Mayfield is. Like, he may be a startable quarterback all season, but I don't think the upside is there where he's going to be, the 6th quarterback overall. But a second-year quarterback coming in, we could see the leap and things could work out. And when you look at that Jets offense, I know we expect the Jets to be bad, but I'm drafting a lot of them. And the fact is that they have Zach Wilson now, second-year quarterback. They have Elijah Moore, second-year wide receiver. They've taken in a few tight ends. They have Michael Carter. They have Breece Hall. They have Garrett Wilson. They have a lot of options there, and their defense is probably going to be bad, so they're going to have to score points. So I know we've already drafted him, but that's my case for Zach Wilson here.
Yeah, I think the breakout case is the case. Yeah, I think we should take him.
Yeah,
let's
take him.
Oh, sorry, we already drafted him. Sorry.
The breakout case isn't blind hope either. Like they did add Garrett Wilson, which is massive, and Elijah Moore in his second year. So, he looked pretty pretty god awful last year, but we're going back to the well on Justin Fields, who looked really bad as well.
And it's like Trevor Lawrence was really bad as well. He's gone in this draft, 4.5 rounds earlier.
Yep.
So
for the price, I think it's pretty good.
I think some of these rookie wide receivers who flopped last season, like they have to bounce back. Like we were drafting so many of them as our QB2s or like a high end QB3 who we think could maybe get there last season. They all just kind of flopped, but I'm not ready to just like rule all of them out because of a bad rookie season. They some of them had some terrible teams and terrible circumstances. Trevor Lawrence certainly in that group where I can't fully give up on these guys at this point in time. And if they happen to sneak into being a massive value and we had the faith to take them where we did, it seems like the only thing you could be is rewarded for that. So I like some of them still.
All right, so we've got one wide receiver pick left and one running back pick left. Oh, did McKinnon just get taken?
No.
No.
Not on the screen.
Do you want
that was
McKinnon?
Robinson.
Yeah.
McKinnon's a great pick.
Yeah.
All right. I can't believe James Robinson has fallen this far. I personally don't think he's going to play much this season, despite people wanting to be optimistic on him. But his ADP is still what it is, and he's now 30 spots past that.
Yeah, some injuries are bad, but some injuries are horrendous, and I think it's going to be it's usually the second year back from that injury that we see players, finding their form again, and so I'm pretty happy with that. And obviously, he would have to contend with Etienne as well. There are so many options though for those zero and hero running back teams. Like we've passed on a lot of running backs where I would have been quite happy to take those guys, and it just shows the amount of options that are available for those builds as well. We are obviously looking to get a wide receiver here in the last round to see things off. Any names you want to shout out? Braxton Barry, as I've seen flashing up there, could fit into the Jet side of things. Anyone that you want? Are you looking to specifically get someone to stack here, Pete, or are you just looking for an upside play?
Pat.
I can think of is all the value that we're hoovering up here. That's all.
Yeah, it's such a value hound that.
Yeah.
Right, now that you've addressed me as Pete, I say I got the green line to do the value hound if we want. I think James Washington is probably the guy who makes the most sense. I'm not drafting a ton of him even with Dak because normally the 18th round is a little bit better in terms of the values at wide receiver, I think. You can get I don't know, Julio sometimes will fall there. Will Fuller isn't usually falling all the way there, but man, Washington, he gives us some correlation.
We want 3 Cowboys receivers, I guess would be my one question. I know he's free at this point, but
yeah, he's free. It's like if he's the guy that, one of the important weeks.
Yeah. Then the other guys, I guess, would just fade out too. So that wouldn't even be that bad. I had OBJ in there, which I'm not even drafting him, but just given some of the back end of our roster, if he was actually signed and ended up being good, I think that he might be a worthwhile pick here, but I'm fine with it.
It's tough for me with we have only 8 wide receivers.
I can't see him playing for the very good portion of the season either.
Yeah. And we have Gallup and we have 2 rookies, so it makes it harder to draft a guy with a torn ACL.
We're not going for Visca here in the 18th round.
I like Washington for the stack. I mean, Visca, he's on special teams right now, and
it's not very good.
He's their 4th wide receiver. Their reports have actually been really good out of camp, and I still think he's good. But it's like one of those things where now he's going to have to dig himself out of a hole. So he might be able to, but it might take him a year and a half or something.
Yeah.
I can't believe. Did you let any time run down on that clock at all, Zach? No?
No, I feel like we already kind of talked our way to. Were you prepared to talk us out of it, Colm? I didn't give you the time.
You didn't give me any time there for my pitches, but
I felt like we kind of all mutually agreed on James Washington, so I just went ahead and went with it.
Zach and I mutually agreed, Colm.
That's what happens.
Yeah. See,
Zach's at the control.
I'm at the control. That's what you need to remember. And I've been drafting James Washington, so that's good. Who would you have taken here, Colm? Do you want to run us through real quick?
I had no strong preference of who I would have went over.
James Robinson, undrafted potentially. That actually is pretty. Unless he goes right here. I don't know why that's standing out to me so much as someone who's not drafting him myself, but that is interesting.
Yeah, the one I probably would have pitched for would have been Tyreek Thornton, or Tyquan Thornton.
Yeah, I do like taking Thornton late.
Yeah, he's interesting for sure.
As long as we got half the Cowboys roster, that was the main thing. Just name the Cowboys team, Zach, will you?
Yeah, what do we have? We have 5 Cowboys. That's pretty sick, actually. So
the price on them is low. I mean, we took Zeke was the first Cowboy, so you better hope the price is low.
Who came at a 15 pick value?
Yeah.
The value high.
Dak, Gallup, Tolbert, Washington. I mean, yeah, I think like total cost of the stack isn't that high, even though
it's the type of stack that I think you should be targeting, where it's much lower cost versus trying to get some of those, elite wide receivers like a Diggs paired with a Josh Allen, for example. Let me run through our team, Zach. If you scroll up, we may check in on some of the other rosters. Then so we have Dak Prescott, Tannehill, Zach Wilson. Then we have Swift, Elliott, Carter, Gainwell, and Jarrett McKinnon. Diggs, DJ Moore, Devontae Smith, Treylon Burks, Michael Gallup, Jarvis Landry, Jalen Tolbert, and James Washington, and then Waller and Goddard. So I think we're really set at tight end. I think we have strong start. We're going to rely on a couple of breakouts from our wide receivers. I think realistically, we're looking at, hopefully one of those 3 Cowboys become this real second option behind CeeDee Lamb, probably on that roster is the way we're probably hoping for it to play out. And then I think we're in a really strong spot then with the running back position. Anything on the roster that you're concerned about, Pat?
I mean, the wide receivers are like a little fragile, right? Like I don't want to say thin, because I think like there's scenarios where this is a quite good wide receiver group, but there's also scenarios where, Burks doesn't start right away, and Gallup takes a while with the injury.
The Eagles don't have high passing volume.
Yeah, where we're kind of like playing with one hand tied behind our back at wide receiver. So that's a little bit unfortunate, but I mean, we have a hammer at tight end, Waller, Goddard getting him like almost 10 picks after ADP. I like that a lot. I feel comfortable at quarterback. I think we have pretty good running back room. Kind of a classic hero running back build, and we got a Zeke value of 15 picks to throw in there. So, overall, I like the team. I mean, we got some good correlation. We talked about the Dallas, Tennessee stuff, but Dallas plays Philly week 15. So we have that. And then we also have Philly correlated with Jarvis Landry, a couple Philly guys with Jarvis Landry, 3 Philly guys, I think, right?
Yeah.
So we have some week 17 correlation there as well. And just kind of a stack in Philly that doesn't have a quarterback, but I think you want stuff like that. I think that's what gives you a little bit of the uniqueness then, rather than just having the standard stacks that people may have. I think overall pretty balanced. Can you pull up the actual draft board, Zach? Is that possible? The one question I have, and this is just in general, is the options maybe that we did have at the Elliott pick. I don't think we didn't really have. There was no strong play.
It happened.
Yeah. No, but I'm just looking at. So we take Elliott in the 5th, but the options were Amon-Ra St. Brown. There was a lot of other running back options there, like Dobbins, Kyler Murray was there. When I looked through it, though, there's my pitch would have been for Elijah Moore. So I think it's 50-50 how that works out overall. So yeah, well, I'll settle in. You won't hear any more disagreements on the Elliott pick.
Well, we could have gone like, I mean, I think there's a pretty strong case, because if we go, let's say Amon-Ra, which would have been interesting, that would have given us a second Lion.
Yeah.
And then we could maybe have gone like, we could have gone Goff later. And then maybe we get like Hunt that's in the 9th. So we could have gotten Singletary. So you're going to prefer that, right? The 2v2 is like Singletary, Amon-Ra versus Zeke Goddard. Which do you prefer, Colm?
I think they're pretty close. I think getting the.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No, I think what's making it close is the Goddard. Having the second high-end tight end on the roster, I think is the part there. The Zeke part. I don't want Zeke, but we have him on the roster.
Well, Singletary too. I thought you were going to jump all over that.
Yeah, no, I think Singletary and Goddard. That's quite interesting. The way the values played out, they're usually not going as tight to each other as they were there. But no, I think overall it's pretty strong. It's probably more balanced than we normally have with the positions. But yeah, we're in a good spot. Casey mentions then that Thornton was drafted before Sky Moore in the NFL draft. I also think that the Patriots drafting sometimes is a little out of whack.
That doesn't count if it's the Patriots. Who's the tackle?
Yeah,
we should do that with what is the guy's name is Luke Strange or something. And
Cole Strange.
Cole Strange,
I think.
Yeah. And I'm sure everyone's seen the video of the Rams guys sitting there and just losing it when
laughing about it. Yeah, I forgot all about that actually. But yeah, that's
Sean McVay's like, I guess you won't be there for us on day 3.
Yeah. The Patriots' approach to the draft is not exactly above reproach, despite all their success in the Bill Belichick era. There's a lot that doesn't go very well.
But I do think when we're looking at some upside options, Thornton is somebody, if you're playing like in, say, the FFPC where there's, 20 rounds or 28 rounds in the deeper drafts, I think like he's somebody you should be definitely trying to get on those rosters. Now, I probably will get him in some of these underdog rosters as well at some point, but he's the sort of player when training camp comes around could rise up. Couple of teams.
I think he's a fine pick. I'm more making fun of the Patriots than the idea of taking Thornton. Getting a second round pick in the 18th round is still good.
Yeah.
Hit us with Team 9. Team 9, Zach. Michael Richards, Team 9, Raise It, he says is the name.
Okay.
As Zach works through, we'll keep the conversation going.
As I learned how to navigate this for the first time.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on. Here, we found it. What's the team?
Team 8. Team 9, Raise It. Yeah, Raise It 7-7. So we have Jameis Winston, Jared Goff, Baker Mayfield, Cook, Kamara, Connor, Cook again, and that's James and Dalvin, the two bros.
Oh, the brothers. The brother correlation.
Has to be worth something. Week 7 buys for both of them as well. Deebo Samuel, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Adam Thielen, Kadarius Toney, Michael Thomas, Lockett, Woods, Everett, Higbee, Hurst, and Hill. Hill is somebody who I have no interest in drafting this year, and I can see why you go for 3 tight ends there. I think 4 tight ends might be pushing it a little. We had Woods, Zach had Woods, we'll say, in the queue for a little bit. Quite a few veterans in this that I'm kind of looking to get those players with the younger ascending upside. When we're looking at the likes of Thomas and Thielen, they're players that I'm not really drafting. How do you feel overall about that team, Pat?
Well, the sauce bit is one in which, we give people the sauce, meaning we kind of rip their teams a little bit. So I don't know how spicy this guy wants it, but I mean, you did take 7 players at quarterback and tight end combined, which is going to leave you a little thin at wide receiver. Not a shock to see a bunch of dusty bets.
Yeah. Well, I think too with this team, I
was being semi-nice about it, but Pat took what I said and turned it up a notch.
Well, yeah, it's for the sauce, That's the sauce.
I think the wide receiver room is very interesting. I'm not drafting a lot of Amon-Ra St. Brown personally. I know that there's a lot of people out there who are high on him. I worry that maybe a more talented room doesn't allow him to be what he was last season. But the Michael Thomas pick, I think, is a nice pick from the perspective of I think you need a wide receiver who you pick late to kind of rise up and really hit and be a more reliable factor. And if Michael Thomas is healthy, then he's absolutely that guy. But yeah, the 4 tight ends rounding it out with Taysom Hill as your tight end 4 is probably not. I know why you're doing it. You want him to play quarterback in one of these weeks and get like a 25-point week, but I wouldn't be doing it.
Yeah, no,
it just feels like because both onesie positions are also weak. I think that's the real issue is that you've got 3 quarterbacks, but not a ton of weekly upside there with Winston, Goff, and Mayfield. And then 4 tight ends, but none of them are really spike week potential. I mean, I guess that maybe you could argue back on because Everett, Higbee, Hurst, all in great offenses. They could all easily get kind of 2 touchdowns in the right week, but still, it's like I don't know. Both groups feel a little thin to me, even with the volume thrown in. The counter argument in terms of the structure is it is a well executed hyper fragile team. So with the running backs, Cook, Kamara, Connor, Taco, and Cook, love it, perfect. And that gives you luxury picks. That opens at least one luxury pick at another position. I just kind of wish that
your luxury pick I wish your luxury pick wasn't Taysom Hill.
The one thing
it's just a little weak at wide receiver for me.
Yeah.
We were joking at the start of the draft about running backs and how we're doing those, and there's certain running backs that we're willing to draft, and the running backs on this roster are interesting running backs. But I have the same approach when it comes to wide receivers. Like I've talked quite a bit on the podcast. Thielen is going to be 32 entering this season. Like there's players with those profiles and his current prices that I just have no interest in him. Robert Woods, probably not going to draft him very much at all this year. There's just some of those veteran players that I'm just skipping on for the ascending guys. So Michael did reply after that, Pat, to say he wanted all of the sauce. So I think he's okay with the replies.
I think he got plenty of sauce. Yeah. We gave him enough sauce.
The other one that comes in is from Angad, and I don't know if he wants sauce. He was asking, would we have taken a third quarterback on his team?
He would like a nice rational conversation regarding his
team. This seems like a non-Twitter style conversation question. So we have Derek Carr, Trevor Lawrence, Travis Etienne, J.K. Dobbins, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Ronald Jones. So pairing up the Chiefs backfield. Then we have Marlon Mack, Zamir White, Devontae Adams, Jerry Jeudy, Elijah Moore, Brandon Ayuk, Tim Patrick, Marvin Jones, Will Fuller, John Mitchell, and Kelsey and Fant. So yeah, I think I don't know how you feel about Fant in Seattle, Pat, but I'm willing to take with Kelsey there, take 2 tight ends and see it out. Then there is some veterans in this roster, but we did talk about Fuller being probably one of our targets if he had to come back to us there. I touched on Ayuk, Moore, Jeudy, Adams. Happy to draft all those guys. How do you feel about the running backs? There is solid running backs here who we're targeting. Like I like Etienne, like Dobbins. Edwards-Helaire, I guess, is okay, but how do you feel about pairing the Chiefs first of all, and then the depth overall? I think there's probably in the 1v1s and 2v2s there's players that I'm picking. And he did ask the question about the quarterbacks. Would we have taken a third quarterback? I might have taken a third quarterback over some of the likes of a Marlon Mack. But the concern here for me is that we have Edwards-Helaire and Jones. If we had running backs on 2 different rosters, I'm probably more likely to leave Zamir White and go after a third quarterback late there.
I think that's what I would have done as well. And I think the 6th running back is probably okay here because it's kind of like it's probably more than okay. It's probably totally fine because it isn't like a true hero running back build. It's not a true zero running back build. It's like kind of somewhere in between. And so I think 5 or 6 is fine. With Etienne and Dobbins is like sort of a very inexpensive superhero build. If you think about it like that, you could have gone 5, could have gone 6. So that's fine. But yeah, I'm not doing like Carr, Lawrence, that type of build at all. Like I'm doing, if I get like Dak, maybe I'd push to 2. But I'm trying to I want my teams to have good quarterback play through week 15, 16, and 17. And so trying to think through, like, if I don't have 2 more like elite guys, or maybe like a guy like Fields with an elite guy where it's like, I know Fields, or I think Fields can have some really high end upside weeks. Carr and Lawrence, I just think are a little thinner to have those like blow up spike weeks. So I probably want a third guy mixed in.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I'd be thinking. Like when you look at, say if you have a Kyler Murray and a Fields is kind of the last guy in that tier. Once you go past him, I think you need to start getting into 3 quarterback builds if you don't get 2 quarterbacks in the quarterback window range, between, in this format, it's going to be between kind of round 5 and round 11 probably. But yeah, I think when you get into questionable quarterbacks, I think a third quarterback here would have helped out this roster quite a bit. But yeah, that's
I also want to talk about the Edwards-Helaire Ronald Jones thing because that's about the only way I'm not doubling up this backfield. Like I've taken Rojo McKinnon a fair amount. Not necessarily something I'm like got to do.
Yeah, he did mention just that it based on the value. So the value hounds may have been out for those 2 picks together. But yeah, I'm not looking to pair up running backs unless there's a massive gap in ADP, like you said there with a potential McKinnon and Rojo or something like that.
Because that's easy because you're just betting against CEH. And if CEH is out of the picture, then we know who Rojo is. Rojo's not going to be like a third down back. So you have to have a third down back playing significant. And for the price, it's like, I'll tackle McKinnon. I've also done the thing with CEH and McKinnon because now you're just betting against Rojo. but this is like the most expensive way to play it.
Mm-hmm.
That said, like I could see this working. I could see the Chiefs' backfield being so valuable that having CEH and Rojo is totally fine, because CEH, his best case scenario is that McKinnon is dust and he's like finally the receiving back. So there's potentially room for both. You'd have to get a value on him, and he got both past ADP, but I've never done it, but I don't hate it.
Is Ronald Jones not a third down back because he got a lot of his route running from watching videos of chickens with their heads cut off, or is that?
Hey, you be careful! Don't slander my guy Rojo like that.
Who put it?
Yeah, I believe it was you that wrote that.
No, I wouldn't.
So yeah, but the last one we will look at, Paul did say that he would take some feedback on Team 12, so he was inverted. I don't know what he was inverted with, but his team is inverted. So he has more of the approach of quarterback I'd be taking. I mentioned Fields being the last one. You could scrape Tua in there if you want to do it, but he has Kyler Murray, Tua, Saquon, Elijah Mitchell, who you touched on during the draft, being a strong value, 20 picks after ADP, Kenneth Walker, Naheem Hines. Oh my goodness, 10 out of 10 here from Zachary. Is Brian Robinson on this roster?
Reaching by 14 picks. What a fish, dude. You don't just to beat me, you reach by 14 picks. Come on.
And then we have Mike Evans, Marquise Brown, Jalen Waddle, Chris Godwin, Rondell Moore, Corey Davis, Paris Campbell, Brian Edwards, Byron Pringle. Then we have TJ Hawkinson and Mike Gesicki. For me, there's a lot to like with this roster. I am sitting off a little bit on Godwin based on his injury. We touched on a couple of player injuries already on this stream, but I do think that he is going to miss quite a bit of time, and I don't think there's going to be a real need for, if Gage plays anywhere near production, I don't think there's any need to rush him back from injury. But Brown, Waddle, Evans, I scroll up. It's interesting with Evans and so we have Evans and Godwin, but we don't have Brady. So it has the two of the Tampa Bay guys, but overall this is a pretty strong overall in terms of the construction. What are your thoughts? I'll let you go first this time, Zach, because he has your favorite player in Brian Robinson on the roster.
Yeah, I really haven't. I blacked out over everything you just said, Colm, because I've just been marinating on this whole reach of Brian Robinson thing for the last minute and a half. But I think it's a very nicely executed roster in terms of like that. This is how I'm going to be building out a lot of things when I consider the quarterback approach. I think this is a good range of a talented quarterback early, running it back with a guy who we think is hopefully going to be, close to maybe a top 15 guy in Tua, who's going to also give you some of those higher end quarterback 1 weeks on occasion. And hopefully that'll supplant some down Kyler weeks. The running backs I like a lot. The Elijah Mitchell value, which I actually mentioned during the draft, he's the guy that scooped that up. That's a 21 pick slide, which is, I think, just tremendous for him. I like Ken Walker. I like him a lot too. His value's only kind of gotten cheaper and cheaper the last couple of weeks. So I like this team overall. The Godwin one does worry me a little bit, but I think that, having a very strong three, hopefully up top with Evans, Brown, and Waddle is very good. Moore's fine, and then you're hoping that one of these later four wide receivers you took can occasionally sneak in as a wide receiver 3 for you, which is possible if needed. So, and then the tight ends, you can't go wrong there, I don't think either. So overall, I like it. I have a lot of teams that look like this, so I hope you guys feel the same, or else I've got a lot of work to do in the next 6 weeks.
What was I going to say? Week 11 and week 14 for this roster could be pretty dry. Just looking at the benefits.
Yeah.
There's a lot of week 14 and week 11 buys on this roster. So hopefully week 13 you've already qualified for the playoffs. But any concern, Pat, for you with something like that, with so many players on a buy on 1 week versus the other? There'll still be enough players to put in a starting lineup, but with injuries and things, it could be left a little bit short.
I'm not really worrying too much about that. I mean, you also do
as long as it's not the onesie positions kind of thing.
Even if it's the onesie positions, I guess it's not great if you were to drop like 3 quarterbacks with all the same buy or something. But you do also have another week where like both players are playing and one can outscore the other. So it's not. I don't think it's as big a problem as some people make it out to be. And there's some potential uniqueness factor as well, where like if your team is loaded, it's not really that big a deal. The bye week didn't hurt you that much. and now you get into, that team happens to get into week 17, it might have, a combo at running back or wide receiver or, tight end, whatever. So it's kind of interesting. Or it might be one of those teams that, like, a quarterback with the 2 guys on the bye weeks, you kind of needed one guy in week 15 and one guy in week 16. And it's one of the rare teams with that type of build to get there. So I'm not paying that much attention to it because ultimately what matters is being, at full strength for 15, 16, 17.
Yeah, Paul messages in to say that Pat is his man, that bye weeks hashtag don't matter. So that is going to get us towards the end of this, but there was a lot of talk just going back to that last year around week 14 with the fantasy playoffs, particularly at the FFPC, and that Jonathan Taylor was going to be on his bye that week. We were the only Jonathan Taylor team then that got to the final of that FFPC tournament, the 12-team final, and a big part of that was in week 14, there was a huge amount of Taylor teams got to there. But because they didn't have his points that week, they didn't get through, and then we advanced. So there can be advantages to that as well, depending on the rest of your construction overall. But a number of questions coming in, or comments coming in. The main thing is that we cannot have any Ronald Jones slander. So no Rojo slander.
Yeah, Zach, you can't be slandering Ronald Jones.
I've been enjoying.
I thought I was reading that verbatim from somewhere, but I can't remember
somewhere,
for sure.
I
can't particularly find the article.
I've also been enjoying any draft that obviously the Daily Rojo is associated with Pat, but we've done a few leagues recently where we've taken Ronald Jones, and the listeners have let us know that we should be RojoViz moving forward because we
RojoViz. That's pretty strong.
Could be a rebrand coming up, but yeah, fun times, good draft. If you are listening to this for the first time, you haven't checked out myself and Zach over on the RotoViz Basketball Podcast, you can check that out. It has its own dedicated podcast feed. The link to that will be in today's show notes. You can also check out all of Pat's great work over at NBC Sports Edge, but follow him on Twitter at Pat Kerrane. Pat, before we wrap up, anything else going on that you want to give a shout out to, give a plug to?
Well, Zach's been mentioning our team preview series, which, I did make a joke about Rojo's route running in my preview of the Chiefs. His route running is a little erratic. I think it's fair to say, even from a Rojo truth.
It was an epic quote. When I read that, I did have an audible LOL. It was very.
He actually took a picture and sent it to me, so that's how much he enjoyed it.
I mean, we can have our favorite players, but we should also have some perspective on if their route running is genuinely confusing to watch.
It's kind of like maybe Tom Brady knows something about football.
Yeah, it's fair. But yeah, our team preview series are rolling out every day on NBC Sports Edge. Also on A Good Football Show, we've been having beat writers on as we preview each division. So yesterday we had Ben Raven on to discuss the Lions, and then Pat and I dove into the rest of the NFC North. We're rolling those out on Mondays, so look for those. And then Ship Chasing every Wednesday night at 9:15. We are in our first main event draft. We just selected Garrett Wilson in the 9th round. That's a team where we got Devin Singletary in the 8th column. So we're feeling pretty good. It's a classic 0 running back team. Our first running back selection was Singletary.
That's a winner.
Feeling pretty good about it. Got Jamar Chase and T. Higgins.
Nice. We're getting into that stage.
Great.
I've been communicating back and forth with Sean Siegel this week about what dates we're going to do these, and usually we do one main event. We're potentially diving into a couple of extra ones this year. We won't be in as many as Pat and Pete, but we'll do a couple. But Zach, obviously you're on Twitter at ZK_FFB, but anything in the pipeline this week? I know you're also heading up to Buffalo to do your live Scotch Fishbowl draft.
Yeah, pipeline's a little thin this week. I do have the Scott Fishbowl draft coming up on Thursday night. That is live. I really don't know if they're going to be putting it on any kind of stream or anything like that, but it's live. It's at a Big Ditch Brewing Company up in Buffalo. There are tickets available on Eventbrite if you want to check that out. All benefits and proceeds go to the Thurman Thomas Family Foundation. Tickets are $75 to attend. My understanding is that they will also be auctioning off a Scott Fishbowl slot live at that draft with us. So if you wanted to draft and didn't get in, pay $75 to get in the door, bid up for the spot, goes to good charity, and you get a chance to still participate in Scott Fishbowl. So I'll be doing that on Thursday, hanging out up there for the weekend, and then I'll be back and officially getting back into the content hopper after my return from Buffalo.
That's awesome. And myself and Zach have a few guests lined up for these streams over the next couple of weeks. They had been at 10 a.m. Eastern. They're likely to be at 9:30 a.m. Eastern. But stay tuned to both my Twitter feed at Overtime Ireland and Zach's Twitter feed. We'll be posting out updates on those for the shows coming out over the next couple of weeks. And then we'll be off to the Fantasy Football Expo. We may see some of the listeners at that. But looking forward to that. But until we are back with another show, have a good one.